right? So which we already have in other technologies, right? So whenever you actually are working on a screen, you will be interested on placing some controls or widgets, right, at some place, right? So you want text box, below that you want password text box, and below that you want some button, right, where you're actually arranging some controls in some way, right? So the arrangement of those controls as such in a container uh, is automatically done, but we have some default things like where you can actually place all the controls, and internally your Android will take care of arranging all the controls, right? So those are called as your layouts as such, right? So we have 5 layouts actually, basically used layout, which is linear layout, which is mostly used. We have little layout. No, this is a one which is mostly used, which is relative layout, and then we have a table layout, right? You have grid, basically view. We'll just see the view, and next one we'll just see the list view. So basically, why we are actually going through this is like we will get some basic knowledge on how exactly these things are going to work, right? Like the linear layouts, table layouts, and all. And this will be same across all the views as such, right? Now here, so let us start with the linear layout. What exactly is and how we can actually arrange things in here, right? So let me just take it up. Right? So let us join. So let's create a new project over here. Let me call it as Android application project, and let me make it as layouts. It's my project name. Now let me keep the project name and application name as same, and let me just give. So let me click on next again, and next let me use the same, next, and then finish. So it will create one basic activity for you. So till that point, let me just close all these things, because these are something which we have used already. So let me just say close others. Now this is our latest project we have, right? Right. So here, so this was the first page. You can see it's activity main. So let us see how we can actually design our layouts. The first layout which we were talking about is linear layout, right? Now this layout, sorry. So these layouts are something which acts as a container, right? Now you can see in your window, which is your Android window, right? So this complete layer, which you can see, is activity window, which is on XML, and on top of that there will be a separate layer on that, which acts as a separate panel as such. A panel is something which can hold all the controls, but here a layout is a panel which will hold the controls, which are widgets, and also it will arrange in some way, right? The first thing, let's go ahead and see how we can actually look into the layout. Now before entering into layouts, right, let us understand where exactly to place, right? The first thing what we have to understand is what exactly are the different views we have in this, right? Okay.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we just started with layouts, okay? So here,
Okay.
so basically how the basic activity will be, right? So in your Eclipse, right, you can see two different views of your activity, which is your XML view. Basically, whenever you create an activity, right, you can directly see your graphical view, right? It's a graphical layout as such, right? If you want to work directly on this, you can actually work on it. Now this part, which you can see here, is called as a control or widgets panel. It's a palette one, right? Where you can see different controls over here, a form controls, text fields, which is text boxes, different layouts, right, which is your linear layout, grid layout, as you are going to see, and your composite thing, which is grid view. You will be seeing, almost all, most of the controls in our classes, right? We have different things over here, which you can pick directly from you can drag the control and drop into your window as such, right? This is your that panel, right? And anyways, I hope you guys know what exactly it is. It's a console. You can have console. If you have any server, you have that panel too, right? You have a log cat. So mostly we'll be touching upon the console and log cat, right? And basically, if you want to see the problems, now we'll be having one more tab here called problems. Actually, the problems window is something which will actually show you if there is any code error, compile time code error. Let me just go to the problems. Yes, these problems, right? So this problems is something which will show you if there is any error or warning, right? It will show you that part. Now, what is that error? Now, let me just go to class. So whatever you have in class, whatever you are writing in class, let us say there is some error. I just wrote something and just saved it. Right now you can see there is 3 errors, you can see, right? That something like whatever you do in Java, right? So you will be getting some compile time errors, which is also called as development time errors, right? So those development time errors you can actually see it in your problems tab. Right? You can just go to that. Okay, you can see that okay there is a problem over here. Just remove it and save it up. Now it will be clear. Now you can use even this tab in order to check out okay whether everything is going fine or not, right? And even if you have some problem here, right, you can see if you save this, you can see that there is the complete project itself will show a red cross mark. You can see this red cross mark in Eclipse, right, which means there is some problem in your project. Now Eclipse is so good enough that it will show the root cause of your problem. You can see wherever the error is happening, right, you can see that there is red mark and it shows source, which means there is a problem inside the source. It says okay it's in this layout and this class. If you can go there, now it will show you where exactly the problem is, right? So this is how Eclipse will help out with showing the problems, right? So that is how you can see here. Once you clear out your errors, everything, all the cross marks will go. Okay? So that is something which you can actually work on with your problems. So these problems are basically when you write code in a Java file, which is a Java class file, right, or .java file, right? No worries in that. Now here. So that was a layout, and in this layout, if you can see, there are so each and every widget or anything we are going to use in UI part of Android, right?
Srinath,
So, yeah.
this is Sandhya. So
Yes, Sandhya.
problems is something like logical errors. I mean, whatever errors in source code, will it come or in XML also?
No.
Sure.
It won't show in XML as such. Yeah, it will also show in XML. Like if I just say something here, right, and just leave it, it will also show that okay this is from problem. You can see even XML will show,
No.
right? Even XML. So this is not logic errors. This is something which is syntax errors, right? Syntax errors as
All the
such.
syntactical errors.
Yeah, because logical errors can be found only in runtime, right? If you run a program, then you can see okay there is some logical error, right? The only
Okay, without running the program itself, it will show.
you mean the design time errors? So whatever I've shown you now, I just wrote something. This is when I save this program, right? So this is something which is design time errors,
Yes.
right? But
Yes,
if I write something
without
called int I is equal to
Compiling itself, it is showing, right?
no, when I'm saving it, it is compiling internally, right? So you can see right here, I just checked
Yes,
that
yes.
build automatically, right? So which means
Oh, okay, without running the program.
without running the program as such, yes. Building is different from running, right? Running is something which you are actually executing a program. Building is something which means you are actually converting the .java files to .class files.
Yeah.
Okay, so you were talking about this. So this
Yes.
is an error divided by 0, right? Obviously, your Eclipse will not understand, right? Until unless you execute this, right? Until unless your JVM goes through each and every step, you will not get your problem, right? So this is something which is your runtime error, right? But if I just give some syntax errors like this, now you can see that okay, there is some error which is happening and you have to clear it out. And you can actually,
Srinath, can you mute us out? Because so much disturbance.
sure. Fine, and if you have any doubt, you can just ping me, right? You can ping me if you have any doubt. Okay, so it just yeah. So that was it regarding these things. Okay, and now let us see a few things in our XML part. Anyways, you have a graphical layout. If you just drag and drop anything, right? Like let us say I'm dragging one more text view here, something, right? So automatically it will create a XML for you, separate XML for you, right? Now these XML tags are same as, basically whenever we develop a web page, right? So basically more focus will be on HTML tags, right? Because there will be a tag which will be in angle bracket, right? So this is angle bracket start and end. Inside that you have your tag name, and remaining things are attributes. So even in Android, the complete graphical interface which you are going to develop here will be completely your XML tags and different attributes. So these attributes will actually qualify how exactly you want to show your layouts as such. Right? So there are many attributes as such, each and every attribute. Now attribute is nothing but, let us say this is your text view is a XML tag. In this XML tag you have attributes which is ID, layout, width, height and text. So these are different attributes which are properties of this text view. So those are called as your attributes of your XML tag. Fine. So now let's get into the attributes part. So here you have got many attributes as such, but only difference between what exactly we have in normal XMLs or HTML tags, and here is each and every attribute or most of the attributes will start with a prefix Android and colon. Right? So each and everything. Check out anything, you can see that attributes will be static. Okay, there are some things which are directly you can actually use, like if I go for style, you can see style attribute is something which you have to which doesn't start with Android prefix, but most of them start with Android prefix. And now your Eclipse will help out with getting the attributes here. You don't have to type Android, the complete tag. Let us say you want to check out, let us say you have something called ID, right, or layout or margin left, you can see. If you want, just type in your margin, it will give you all the options. When you select something, now you can see automatically your Eclipse will help out to completely print out your Android prefix attribute tag and your actual attribute of your XML, right? So that is how Eclipse will help out to fasten the coding practice in Android, right? So you don't have to worry about basic syntax things and all in Android, because Eclipse will help you out. Only thing what you have to know that yes, these things are there. I mean, whatever are there in Android, you have to know. So just to start with, you have some very popular attributes which we are going to use. The first one will be ID, right? Which is Android ID, right? Now ID is something which is same as a control ID we have. ID will be a unique identifier of this widget. Right? You can see that, okay, my text view is a widget whose ID is text view 2. And text view, there is one more text view. You can see that there are two text views which you have here, text view and text view here, right? They are exclusively two different controls or widgets as such in Android, right? Now ID is something which is a unique identifier of each widget in Android, right? And how do we get into ID is, you can just type in ID and control space, it will give you the complete syntax of your ID, right? Now in this ID part, you have to understand one thing here. Now why do we give ID in this pattern, right? Rather I can directly give this ID here, right? But why why this nomenclature is followed in Android is something which we have to know. Now if you remember, we were talking about something called auto-generated files, right? So in Android gen files, which is auto-generated Java files, right? We have one class called r.java. R is nothing but resources.java, right? Now here you can see here, I just have two controls here, right? Which is text view 1 and text view 2. Two different controls, right? So these controls are, whenever you just create a control, these IDs will be registered with your R.java. You can see our resource, as we have learned before, is a combination of different classes, which is IDs, you have layouts, you have menus, right? For each XML, you can see in resources, you can see here, you have strings.xml. For strings, you have a separate class. You have styles. For styles, you have a separate class. Internal classes in a main class called your R class, which is resource class. Among them, now we are discussing about IDs, right? Which means when we say something like @ +ID, which means this is referring to R.java and it is asking to add this ID to this. Now you can see that the ID is here, which is TextView1 and TextView2 automatically got generated here. If you change this, let us say TextView, I'm calling it as TextView something like first, right? And if you save this file, if you go back here, you can see it will be changed automatically. Right? So that is how it will actually create a new one if it is not there, or if it is already there, it will actually take you to the changed one. Right? So that is how the ID attribute works as such. And always there is a restriction that you have to use this ID attribute here. Right? Yeah. So that was the one. And the next thing is that we have this Android, one more thing called layout width. So this layout width is something which will give you an access to defining how much should be the width of this widget, right? What should be the widget width as such? Okay, doesn't matter. Now, yeah. So we were talking about the next one, which is width and height. So this width and height will give you how much your widget or current control should take the width. Now in this width and height, right, you have three different ways to mention. One is wrap content. Wrap content is something which will wrap your text if it exceeds the width of your screen. You also have something called fill parent, right? Fill parent is something which will, if you do some width here, right, it actually wrap, and if you don't do width here, what happens based on the parent? Now parent here is nothing but your layout, right? Because this layout is holding all your controls. You can see here, layout starting is here and ending is here, which means in between that, whatever you define, right, will be the widgets which is carried over by your layout actually, right? That is your next thing called fill parent. If you use fill parent, it will actually fill up as much as you do the text, it will actually fill up that text, right? Okay, fine. So that is a text, which is a layout width and layout height. And now you have layout below, margin left. You will understand these things when you actually go on with the layout, don't worry, right? And then you have padding, bottom, everything. These things you will also learn in layouts. Don't worry. So these are like, attributes which have, and we have something called text attribute. Now this text and IDs and layouts are common for all the XML tags which we have in our Android. Don't worry about that, because as we progress with our course, right, we'll get more and more attributes to learn. Okay, because there is nothing like a set of attributes which you have to learn, but as per the requirement, we will be learning more things, right? We'll see it and we'll be. Now here we can see one thing called text, right? Basically, you should never hard code your text. Now you can see when I say something called hey hello, right, which means I'm hard coding this. If you go back here, you can see that there are two controls as such, which is hello world, right here, and you have hey hello. Now in hello world, you can see that it is not giving any exclamatory mark. Now just this is one more important thing, guys, here. Now if you get anything like this exclamatory, which means it is just warning you, it is not an error. It just says, you can see here, it's a warning here, it just says hard-coded string hey hello, should use string these words, right? What does it mean is you have an option to actually generalize these things, right? Now where can I generalize these things is, you have something called @ is something which will take you to the resource of XML. Now which XML is pointing to string? You can see that there is a XML called strings no values. Click on that. Now you can see in your strings XML, there are again two ways. One is your UI, which is you can directly see your resources, or you can have XML form also, right? Whatever you define here will be shown as a direct UI here. You can see hello world here, hello world, and the value is hello world. You can see action setting something, right? The same things also you have here. Now here, so you can see here at the rate text, I'm just taking out the key called hello world, which means I'm actually referring to something called this key, which is name of the string, and I'm getting hello world printed on my screen when I'm using hello world here. This is what. In the same way, how to add this is, you have to go back here, create one string here, give some name. Let us say this is my text, something, text2 something, and just give hey hi something, right? And you have to use this over here, let us say, right? How can you use? Just say at the rate control space, it will give you all the XMLs which are there in our Android project. I want a string, and again control space, it will give you everything. Whatever keys you have, it will give. Let me use text2. Now if you can see here, now again it is saying hey hi, but you are not getting a warning here. Why? Because we have not hard coded anything, right? But anyways, in our progress of training, I'll be hard coding this, because every time we can't go and for our training, right? Obviously we are not more concerned about text here, right? Rather we are more concerned about the functionality of what we are actually learning, right? For that purpose I'll be hard coding, but don't ever do that. Always you have to generalize that in your strings, all the strings whatever we have. It can be your app name, anything, never hard code, because it will give you direct access to XML files which are under values, right? So if that is already there, you don't have to hard code things, right? So this is about your attributes which we have, right? And different controls, right? Let me remove this part now, and now you have a very simple hello world, which is a value. Now let us move on with layouts now. The first layout which I was talking about was linear layout, right? Now in linear layout, so all the internal components or internal widgets will be arranged either in a single column or a single row, right? It's a linear, which is one dimensional, right? You can actually arrange everything in a one line or one row or in a single column as such. Let us see how we can actually do that. Now in each and every activity, two things are very important, guys. These two lines, which will actually make this XML as an Android activity. The first thing is that you have to give this link, which is schemas.android.apk rs android, which is XMLNS file, and you have to give these tools. So always try to keep this as it is, right? Don't change this, right? So this is something which is by default being provided by Android, right? If there is any upgrade, so with respect to the SDK which you are upgrading, right, this will automatically be updated. Don't worry about these things, right? Now that is one. And the next one which you don't have to touch is this one, tools context. Now this context is nothing but we are actually connecting to our class. If you see, when I click on this, you can see that okay, this is my corresponding class called main activity, which will be used by your activity underscore main. So this is the connection. This is where we connect our class with current activity XML. Now how can we connect this activity with class? Now as you remember, in a life cycle of your activity, right, the first method which will be triggered is onCreate, right, whenever it gets created. Now whenever it gets created, you have the first line called set content view, which means I am trying to set the content of this class. Now you can see the content is nothing but activity underscore main, which is my XML. And activity underscore main, I am getting it from r.layout. Why? Because these things are layouts, and you can see that this activity by default will be saved in your r.java. When I go back to this, now you can see whatever I'm adding, whatever activities I'm adding will be saved in layout, right? Which means in your r.java file, you can see that in your layout, which is final static layout, that particular activity's ID layout got created. If you create one more layout here, which is new, other, and ended activity, let us say I'm just saying it as second activity, right? So which means I'm actually creating a second layout as such, right? Activity or layout finish on them, right? Now this is my second activity. If you go back into R.Java, if you see, right, you can see under my layout I have activity underscore main, and also I have my activity underscore set. So that's how if you create any number of layouts, those will be generated in your R.file. Now through this R.Java I'm trying to access. You can see R, in this R class I have a layout class. You can see this is my R class, in which I have a static class called layout, in which I have a static number called activity main, and I am just giving it up, right? So that is how you can actually connect your R, and you can actually use those layouts and widgets everywhere across everything, right? Now that is what we have now let's get into the actual thing, which is our linear layout. Let me just change it as linear layout here, and let me just take this, close it here too, right? Now this is my linear layout I have. Now whenever I give linear layout, right, so as I said, linear layout is something which is used to arrange the children in either single row or column. Now let us see how we can actually do that, right? Let me just take up few more text views here. You have one text view. Let me just drag and drop one more text view. Right? You have two text views here, right? Let me just say I have one more text view. Let me just copy it here and paste again here, right? Now you can see, let us say this is something called text 1, and let us say this is text 2, something I'm just giving. Now here in my linear layout, you have to use one attribute here called orientation. You can see that there is one attribute called orientation, which is in your XML tag called linear layout tag. Right? In this linear layout, you have an orientation thing. Now in this orientation, you have two things, either a horizontal or a vertical. Right? Let me select horizontal here. Let me save this, and let's go back to graphical layout here. Now you can see everything got arranged in a horizontal manner. This is something where everything got arranged in a sequence. Now here you can see each and every control is just colliding with each other, right? Now for that we have to use one attribute called margin. If you remember, basically if you have worked for any web application or anything, right? So each and every control, whenever you place it on a UI, you will provide something called margin. Margin is nothing but you are actually specifying when this control is there, how much margin or gap should maintain with respect to the immediate control. That is your margin. So how you can actually give here? You can just say margin here. Either you can give margin directly, which will, whenever you give margin, let us say I'm just giving 2 dp, right, which is density pixel, right? So when I say this, now if you go to layout, you can see that there is some gap being happening, right? If you can't see this, let me just increase it to some 10 dp maybe, right? You can see now why it is coming down, because I just gave margin now, which means in all directions since margin left, top, right, bottom, it is taking as a 10 dp. Now if you don't want to give in all directions, I can just give either margin left or right. Let me give right here, because the controls are being saved right side, right? Now right in the sense, you can see it is maintaining gap only at the right, which is of 10 dp, density pixels. In the same way, let me give margin to even text here, text 1. Let me copy this and paste it over here, right? When I go back, now you can see this is a very decent way of arranging your controls. Now you can see if you increase this control view rather, right, if I have more controls again, paste it here again, let me copy this and paste it here, let me paste, right, which is my text 3, text 4 and text 5, right? Now where I want to have a margin of this, let me just give this, right? Okay, right? So so many text fields section 3, 4 and 5 letters, right? Now if you go back here and see, you can see all texts are arranged in a. Now when you run this project, right, when you run this project, let me run this, right click on this and run as your Android application, right? So even then, what is happening? Error in XML file. Okay, that was an old error, don't worry, right? Now you can see here it is installing my APK. Now it starts my APK, so this was old one anyways, right? Now you can see each and every control got arranged in a row, right? In the same way, let us say I'm actually increasing it to furthermore 6, 7. Let us see how it arranges. 6, you have 7 and 8, right? Now if you go back here, now you can see it is arranging, it is actually taking directly into something, which is, it is not wrapping it up, right? So let me just run this for you. I'm just closing the old app. Okay, so it is installing the new one and it will open up the activity now. Right, now you can see that everything got arranged in a row, but whatever is overhead, right, it just, it just went off. Now in this situation, which is a situation where you are just saying that okay, it is a wrap content here, right? Rather, let me just give something called this is a text file, right? So in text file, let me give some margin, which is, let me copy this margin top here, give here, again here, 6, 7 and 8. So now in my 6, let's have what happened here. Oh, sorry. So one double quote is missing here. That's right. So here, let me just take some margins again. Now here, let me just width as, let me just take it as fill parent and fill parent, and let me take it in all. What is the question? Does it shows indentation errors also? Indentation errors in sense, no. Indentation is something which you are actually, we are using that, right? Indentation. So it won't show the indentation error as such. Right? Go back here and now you can see text 5 and text 6 is missing again, right? So which means now you have to actually use it as separate view again. You have to rearrange them, which is, let me give it as vertical now. Let's see what happens. So vertical is some other direction we are using. Now in vertical you are actually arranging everything in a single column as such, right? So where it, even if you maintain a single column, right, it maintains the margin which you have given, right? So it won't auto arrange the things. It will just take the controls and arrange in a one row or one column. That's it. It won't get back to your other controls. You have to make sure that you're actually dragging that, or you're actually creating one more layout and you're actually keeping the controls separate. That's why in linear rate, if you want to, just make sure that you're actually arranging something in one column and one row, you can go ahead with this, right? Otherwise, what you have to do here is, you have to actually, make it either relative with each other, or you have to go ahead with the direct linear. Yeah, Geeta, what is your question? Yeah, go ahead. Geeta, it seems you're muted. You can just unmute yourself.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Can we add a scroll bar and then add more than either vertically or horizontally in linear layout?
Okay, you mean the scroll, auto scroll, or what you are talking about? This scroll?
Yeah, because see what I was expecting was when we add in the horizontal layout.
Okay.
When our orientation was horizontal, and when you added 8 text views, it didn't give you properly, right?
Yes.
Because it was coming out of the screen after the rows ending.
Yes.
Yeah. So I thought if you could just scroll ahead and get the text views after text 5.
Yeah, you can get it actually, but that won't be the actual what do you call arrangement, actual real-time arrangement of that. If you want to actually keep all these things in a one row, right, which you want to create a create everything in one line and just scroll it up, right, rather than you use this much space, right, or else if you want to give in a separate section, you can actually create a separate separate panel as such where you can use multiple things. But normally what happens in Android, whenever you create any data, automatically wherever it needs, your Android itself will create an automatic scroll bar for that.
It will?
It will.
But then with linear layout it won't create automatically?
Linear layout will actually, will intentionally, that the things will go on and you are actually doing that part. Which means you want that to be in that way, right? So that's why you have created. Yes, you can create a scroll bar. Not saying that you can't create a scroll bar, but basically the indentation will be like that actually. That's why the indentation. The indentation of controls which you are going to do in linear layout, right, will be in that way. Yes, you can also have a scroll bar, but it may not work for all versions of Android.
Oh, okay.
It can happen, right? That's why whenever you're actually giving up, right, automatically if you will see it maybe in a grid view or list view rather, right, in our list view we'll see. So whenever we give more than the item which we need, right, it will create its own automatic scroll bar. No, we are not giving any scroll bar over there, right? We have already seen that, but we'll see it again anyways, right? So at that time I'll show you,
Yeah, if I have to use something some design with the scroll bars, linear layout is not a good option. I should go.
Yeah, basically linear layout, that's why all the layouts will use very less, but most of the times we'll be using relative layout.
Okay.
Right? Because you can arrange in whatever manner you want across the whole screen. It gives more options than other layouts, yeah?
Okay. Thank you. And Srinath, one more question.
Yes, Sandhya.
In relative layout, when you arrange the views in the layout, in graphical layout, when you go to XML part, it is getting jumbled.
Jumbled in the sense, one is below the other. That's what it is.
Yes.
Doesn't matter. Even if it jumbles, doesn't matter because there will be one property like below this or above that, right? Doesn't matter. You can have that.
So when I am arranging it again, the graphical layout is changing. Yeah, Sandhya.
It will happen. It will happen. Yeah. You go ahead, Geeta. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Yeah. That is because the XML file is with the respect to relative layout. It's going to read from left to right and from your top till the bottom of your screen. Okay.
Yeah.
You got me? Yes. Yeah. So if you're going to change your orientation, so from the left, if you say hello world in relative layout, that would be the first in your text XML file. Then would be the text and not the text file or something else which you already did first.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay. I'll observe now.
Yeah.
No problem. Okay.
Yeah. Even in first time it happened actually, right? Yeah. It happens. But yes, don't worry about the actual. When we go to related, I'll show you that part too. You don't worry about where exactly your XML is being placed, but what exactly matters is in attribute how relatively you are actually controlling with respect to other XML tags is important. Right? We'll see that part. No worries. Okay. So this is how we can actually arrange the things in a linear layout. Okay. So let's get into the next one, which is relative layout. Let me just change it to relative layout over here. Let me just take it up. Now here, before going to relative layout, right? So I just want to show you something here. Now I think this is a time where we should learn how to go from one activity to other activity. So very simple part. Let's just see a quick thing, because See, I just created my linear layout in my first activity, right? I don't want to disturb this activity as such, right? What I want to do is I want to create one more activity, like maybe second activity. Maybe I can use this as a related activity. But whenever I run this Android program, what happens? My main activity will open. This will open. But how can I go from main activity to second activity is a question, right? So what I want to do here is, whenever my main activity opens on create itself, I'll actually will write a logic which will actually move from this activity to the second activity. Okay? Now we'll just write this. So in order to do that part, in order to have any communication between two Android activities or in between any APIs, right, we have one class called intent class. So intent is a class which is a internal class of your Android.content package. This intent class is something which is used mostly for collaboration and collaboration and communicate between different activities and from activities to the Android APIs. Right? So as of now, what we are looking into is we want to move from my first activity, which is main activity, to the second activity. Second activity is called as a second activity here. Right? And whenever we are moving from one activity to other activity, right, we doesn't take any of these XMLs. We have nothing to do with XMLs. We will be just moving from one class to other class. That's it. Now how this XML is being invoked? Now if you go to second activity, you can see again whenever this second activity gets invoked, the first method which is called is onCreate, right? And on onCreate, anyways we are calling my activity second layer, which means internally this will be open. That is how the communication happens. Now let me just go to intent. Let me create an object which is something name is equal to new. You have an intent class in which you have to give two arguments over here. So intent, I've got multiple argument. It's a overloaded argument. Constructor you have. So in which we are more interested on this type of intent here. Now I want to move from my main activity. This main activity is nothing but the current class or current layout activity. Dot this. So this will mention the current instance of your class to second argument will be to which activity you want to move. I want to move to my second activity dot. So what I want to trigger? I want to trigger the class of my second activity. Now that is how you should actually give the intent from where you want to move and to which resource you want to move. Now once it is done, so in your class, if you can see one very important thing, each and every activity class should extend your activity. Unless your class extends your activity, right? So this class is not treated as an activity class which you can tag to your layout XML. Fine. So that's why when you extend some activity or some class, what does it mean? You are inheriting that class. Whenever you inherit that class, all the internal methods of this class can be exposed. Now one of the internal class of activity is start activity. Start activity where you have to give an intent here. Now we have already created an intent called LOBJINT, which is my intent where I'm specifying it. Okay, I want to move from this class to this class. Right? Now if I run this, now let us say I'm just going back to my second activity, and what I'm going to do from this hello world, let me just change to something like this is second activity, right? Which means I'm actually moving from my first to, whenever my first loops, immediately I'm moving to second, which means you will never see the first one now, right? Now let me run this project, run this up, and let's go back to this. Okay. Now you can see it directly went to second activity. Now when I click on back button, right, so when I click on that, now you will see the first activity. Right? So that is how you can actually move a very simple two lines where you are using intent to move from one active to another. Right? Any questions here? Okay, perfect. Now here, now let us say my second activity is something which I'm gonna use for.
Excuse me, trainer. I have a question. If we rotate the screen of the device, or if we take larger or different devices, how would our layout work?
Yeah, what was the question, Geeta? If
we rotate the screen,
okay.
the emulator or the device.
Okay.
Yeah, then I would just like to know how would this.
Okay, sure. So if you want to rotate screen, you just press Ctrl F11. Ctrl F11 will rotate your screen, right? And it will be rotated automatically, right? This is the second activity. You can see. If I go back again, okay, it will show this. Yeah.
Okay, but so it will show till the side width of the screen. If I add more text views, one or two more fit into that, right?
It will fit into, yes, it will fit into. It will actually take the complete pixel. See, when you tilt your phone, right, obviously the pixel itself has changed, right? Your height has become your width, and width is now height now, which means obviously the things will change. Yeah.
So can we have something? I think maybe that with the other layouts, but since we are missing text 6, 7, 8 in the landscape layer rotation of our device, but we are able to see it here.
Okay.
So if sometimes you say I have so many datas with text 8 and text 9 also,
Okay.
9 or 10 components,
Yeah.
but if I'm seeing it in the vertical rotation of view of the phone, I'm missing some data.
Okay. Which is not correct. Yes, which is not correct. Yes.
Yeah, which is not.
No, obviously, then you should go for some other layout like grid or something, which will actually show. See, if you go for grid, relative layouts and all, right, what happens is based on the pixel change, it will automatically change its own orientation. That's why I said this linear layout is something which is static layout, right? It always stays next to that. That's it. But relative layout is something with respect to the control. Like, see, if I just go back to the normal screen, right? There is my normal screen, right? Where it will rotate, it will come back to this. When I click on back again, now you can see that, this would have changed. The pixel pointing would have changed for this layout.
Yeah.
Obviously, and this control will have different pixel point. Which means when you go for relative layout, obviously, with respect to this, other things will change. Because as of now, when you see this layout, right, the center of this layout will be different. It will be half of the height.
Right.
But if you just tilt it, the center is half of the height, width. Am I right? So obviously, which means you are actually making a completely different situation. Right? You see the same tilting part when you actually move on to relative layout, okay? We'll just see that.
Okay.
How it goes.
We use linear layouts mostly for developing the sign-up activities, those things, right?
Yes, mostly what we'll be doing is mostly, you won't allow, your activities to rotate. I mean, when you just, rotate your screen, right? Sometimes you have to disable the rotation of your screen for some apps. Right? How to do that, I'll show you. But you would have, seen some apps like, some apps, but mostly all your Gmail apps, Facebook apps, right? What it does is whenever you tilt your phone, and if your screen rotation is enabled, right, even that app will be rotated by default. But most of the times, like if you take some very important apps like some banking apps or your trading apps or something, right? So those apps will not rotate. Why? Because they want to keep, because see, they will be developing your app based on some resolution, right? And they don't want to really lose that. That's why whenever you tilt your phone, it won't rotate. Even if your screen rotation is enabled, right? Actually your activity will not rotate. Right? It happens. So let me just show you that part here if you want.
Yeah, no problem. You can show as per your schedule.
Yeah, that's fine. We can actually do that part. Okay, let me just complete this so that we can understand that part.
Yeah.
You can actually do that part in the manifest file, right? I think Geeta knows that. Anyways, we'll just get into that again. Right? Okay. So for your information, if you want to see this tilt, right? So the shortcut is, you can just note down, the shortcut is Control and F11. Control F11 is a shortcut to rotate your emulator. Not rotate, I mean enable the rotation of your emulator. Okay, so that is what it is. So now actually we are going directly into our second activity. Right? Now let's get into the main business here, which is, let us see, in my second activity I'm gonna use my late layout. Okay. Anyways, we have a late layout directory. Right, when you create your activity in Eclipse, right, so it will actually create a direct layout called late layout. So before, when if anyone is using 15th version or 14th API version of Android, right, so whenever they create a activity, right, so they will be getting linear layout as a default, right, but they have changed it to late layout now. So all the latest ones who are using after 15th API and the latest Eclipse versions, right, they will be getting this late layout as a default. Right? Now, let us talk something about related layout first. So related layout is something which is, we basically call it as a view group. Anyways, all the layouts are something which are view groups, which means they are used to collect all the views and place it in one place. Right? Because we can also call widgets as views, right? Our controls, what we are learning now, right, which we'll be learning, right, we are just checking out one view or control called text view. It is same as a label which we normally see, right? Now related layout is something which will display views related to their positions. Let us say you have one child here, let us say 1. Now let us say based on this I can actually arrange it here, and based on this I can arrange it here. Now this 2 and 3 are being arranged with respect to your 1. This is something which is your related layout. Related to some control, you can arrange different controls as such, right? Because the position of 2 and 3 are mainly, it mainly depends on your first control, or maybe it can be like first control is a reference control for 2, and maybe second control is reference for 3. It can also happen, right? And they are basically depending on DPs, which is density pixels. Like, okay, 1 is, the gap between 1 and 2 is some DPs, which is height and width you are actually calculating. We'll see how exactly we can actually put it in, right? Now, let's go back here. So let us just copy, let me just remove this, let me just call it as some text 1. And let me copy this up again. Paste it. Let me just take maybe 4 text views, 2, 3 and 4. So immediately, right, so you can see here we just copied the same thing, and I haven't started anything on late layout yet. So I just took layout as late layout and remaining things are same, right? And what we did is we just copied we just wrote some XMLs of text views. Text view, what text 1, text 2, text 3, text 4. Now if you go to graphical layout, you'll see what happens. Now can you see here what happens? See right here. So only one, you can see only one control, but this is not one, right? All the controls are overlapped, right? Every control, right? Why? Because in related layout, until unless you mention how the second text view is related to first text view, right? It will be overlapped at a first. Each by default, everything will be set at 0 dot. I mean the first pixel itself, right? So for that reason, see here what happens when I just drag and drop here, right? Just let me drag this. See, I just dragged one of the control, which is my text 4, let us say, right? Text 4. Go back in text 4. Now you can see in my text 4, automatically it gave something. It says margin right is so and so, margin top is so and so, and all. Right? Now whenever I say margin top, this margin top is nothing but it is taking, see here, this is your margin top and this is your margin top. Right? In the same way, let me drag and drop something. Now you can see this is related to 2 things. One is your margin left maybe. If you go back here, right? Now you can see here that you have a margin left with 31 dp. You can see this control margin dp, and you can see with respect to parent. Now you can see automatically it inserted an ID for this. Why? So initially when we just gave text views, right, we just gave as it is. We didn't give any IDs, right? Now you can see that as it is being aligned with respect to this text view, it inserted an ID and it is using ID over here. You can see that baseline, align baseline with text view 1. Align baseline is one attribute in the layout, which means you can see here in graphical layout, both the controls or widgets will have same base positions. That is your align baseline. So this align bottom and baseline is with your text view 1. In the same way, let us say I'm just taking out one more control here, and I'm gonna take it with respect to this, let us say, right? This maybe this, yeah. I have kept it here, text 2. Now you can see text 2 is basically pointing to text 2. Why? If you go to text 2 again, which is text 2, now you can see text 2, it is saying that, okay, it is right of text view 2. Text view 2 is nothing but this, which is your text 2, right? So this is right of this, and it is at some portion with respect to your thing, right? Now that is what it happens. So this, when you drag and drop something, it will actually go to that. Don't worry. So till this point now, you maybe you would have confused, right? What exactly is happening? Let us do something very clearly. Let me just undo everything. Okay. Now here, first what we'll do, we'll first create IDs for everything. Let us say @ plus ID. Let us say it has text view 1. Okay. So your text 1 will become text view 1, and in the same way, let me copy this up. Text. Let me call it as text 2. Let me call this as text 3, and let me call this as text 4. Right? So now I have decent IDs and the text for this. Now what I'm going to do here is, the first thing what we'll see here is the horizontally central and horizontally vertical. Now let us first see something called, you can see here, center in parent, center horizontal, center vertical. Now let us say to my text view 1, I want to have my center horizontal as true. Right. Let me just go back now here and go back here. Now you can see that the text 1 became horizontal and center. Now let's go to text 2 and just say center vertical. Center vertical in the sense, let me just say true here. Vertically center. If you go back here, now you can see here, right? So this is your vertical center and this is your horizontal center. Let's go back to text 3 and just say center parent is true. Which means if you go back here, now you can see this is your center parent. Text 1, text 2, text 3, text 4 got aligned in the way that, so now here, anyways, I have given only the border of your layout. I haven't arranged anything with respect to other control. I just said, okay, it should be at center parent, it should be at center vertical. Now let me run this once. Let's see what happens here. Now you can see this is everything. Now even if you tilt your phone, right? Even if you tilt your phone over here, right? It will be rearranged and you can see that, see? So it will automatically arrange. Now you can see this is horizontal vertical, right? You can see based on your width here, it got arranged to the center. Based on your height here, you can see it's perfectly at center vertical. And you can see the complete layout, this is a parent center. Right? So this is how it gets arranged on a direct thing called center parent. This is the first thing. Now, let's see one more thing. Let us say your text 4 is here, right? So let us do something like margin or above, let us say, or let us say below. You have something called layout below, right? Layout below, it needs some ID, right? I want to keep this below, let us say, where should we keep, let us say text 3, let us say, right? I want to keep below text 3. Let me just do that. Go back here and you can see that it is below text 3. Can you see this part? If you go here, this is text 3 and it came below text 3. Don't worry, why it is at extreme left? We just said it should be below, exactly, we just said this should be below this, that's why it went. Now if you want to align that, what you can do, just go for align. Now you can see it says align left top and all, right? Maybe you can just go for align left of maybe the same ID, right? If you go back here, now you can see both the lefts are aligned, right? That's why wherever you move this control, which is text 3, right, it will move. Let us say I'm actually moving this text 3 to somewhere else. Let's say I'll just say it as align to parent top, or let us say parent bottom, or basically parent right. That's true, right? I just gave parent right, and let me remove this. Okay, let us keep this as it is. Now can you see this? It went to parent is nothing but wherever you see the parent, right? Parent is nothing but the current layout. So that is parent. We just said align to the right, which means it went to the right of this. Based on this, it also moved control 4, right? Because now your text 4 is moving related to your text 3. That is why it actually moved again to this. Right? Now this happens even if you tilt. Let me run this project now. Let us just keep this in a even part. So this is installing the layout, and you can see here, right? So this is, we just touched text 3 and it actually moved even text 4. Even if you tilt it out, see what happens here. Can you see this? Now basically it should hide, right? Because we just gave it extreme right. But what happened here? It just took the center parent of your parent, it aligned it right, and based on the alignment, even text 4 got arranged.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So this is your alignment with respect to, control F11. Okay. With respect to the layout, with respect to other control as such, right? So we just move one step ahead based on the control. Now this is what I was talking about, the relatedness. Right? In the same way, now you can try some more text views. Maybe let me just take one more text view here. Let me call it as text view 5 and text 5. Right? So here what I'm going to do here, let us say I'm going to take it as above, right? So it should be above my text view 2, right? So above, let me just say ID ls, which is my text 5 will be on top of text 2. You can see text 5 is on top of text 2. Now if I move my text 2, automatically this text 5 will be moved. If you go back here, so to my text 2, let us say I'm making it as center parent, right? Go back here, see, it will always stay here, right? It is on top of this. Now let me just make it as center vertical. Go back here. Okay, this is fine. Now before moving, let us say I want to align the left or right, maybe this time, right of the ID, which is my text view 2. Now here anyways it will stay in the same place. Now let me move my text 2, which is my center in parent. If you go back here, now you can see even a text 5 got, right? So this is how we can actually move related to other controls. This is how we can actually relate to some other things. First thing, related to the parent, which is your bolts or parent. Second thing, related to your controls. So related to your controls, you have seen above. In the same way, you have your below. right? Below something else maybe, right? And we have something called align. Align, there are so many. Align left, top, right, bottom. So these four are with respect to other control. We have seen one thing called align right to some control. You can actually align to anything. And you can see align left, top, right, bottom, right? Let me create one more control here, which is text 6 maybe. A very simple text 6. See here, based on my control set, I am placing randomly, but based on the choice, it will be arranged in a screen. Okay, it doesn't matter where I am actually painting it with. So let me just take it as text 6 and text 6. And here, what I am going to do here is, let me call align parent bottom as true. Now if you go back here, you can see it will get to the bottom of a page, which is a text 6. It will always stay here. And here itself you say center horizontal true, right? If you go back, it will be aligned to the center horizontal of the text. So this is how you can actually make it with respect to the layout and with respect to the controls. Now you can actually go ahead with multiple things, like how exactly you can imagine whatever you can try out with respect to the relative layout. So this is about the relative layout which you have. Any doubts in this case, guys? Is this clear? Just try out what happens if you run this, right? Obviously you get more doubts, like if you apply these things rather, right? So now you can see, yeah.
In one activity we can use more than one layout, right?
You can use, yes, you can use. So here what I can do here, I can just do one thing, like I'll create my linear layout here, right? So in this linear layout, maybe I'll create some text views maybe, right? Let me just copy the basic text. Let us say there is no things here.
Here we don't give that XML tools and all.
I mean here we don't need actually, because one related which is main parent, for that you have to give, because you have to see this layout what is a root for the complete Android activity, right? So for that root you have to give this. So from this part, whatever you do, if you are mentioning layout here, right, which means you are actually giving a view, one of the view for that. Now here let me just paste it something which is text 10 and text 11 and maybe text 12, and let me call it as orientation as something called vertical, right? And you have to give height as, let us say it is some fill parent, and you have to give width, let us say fill parent, right? Few things which you can actually mention over here, right? You can take maybe height, width, have taken padding, and everything is fine. Now let me run this. If you go back here itself, you can see you are right. So where is your 10? Oops, what happened here? You have your 10. Is there any problem with this?
Yeah, I think you have forgot your double quotes for one text box.
Okay, wait. Okay, what is this now?
Here, in text 11.
Yes, text 11.
You haven't closed.
Is this what has happened? Okay, wrap content, show this. So let me just copy this, paste it here, and I'll call this here. Please. So is this correct now? So till 11, what is that I'm missing over here? So here it says duplicate attribute.
You have given the layout height for two times.
Okay. No issues. Fine. Okay, now it should go back here. Now you can see the sequence here, right? Let me run this. Maybe you may not see here. Okay. So now here you can see there is one more layer being have, right? You can create any number of layers. Now you can see that text 6 is at bottom. Even if you change now, let's change the view now. You can see all the controls will be visible over here. No control will be missing. Right?
We need to arrange the layout it should come under the relative bottom of the page, like that. Those things we have to arrange.
Arrange in the sense you just give an attribute, right?
No, we have added the linear layout, right?
Okay. No, I just said vertical here, right?
Where it should appear.
Okay, you can have that attribute. Let us say if you are giving center, you can actually have that, right? You can see here center in parent true. If I give this attribute, now see again this will happen. See your linear layout is in your LED layout, right? Which means whatever you can do in your normal view, you can also do it for your linear layout. Okay. Now if you go back here, you can see that things will be. Yeah, it got arranged here, right? Which is your center in parent true. There is already controls over here, right? That's how it can come up here. That's fine. But you can give your central parent whatever you can give over here, right? With respect to some bottom or top of some control, right? You can actually give. Right? It will be arranged as such. But yes, you can actually give. It all you can see. Everything can see. If you already have central parent something, you cannot fit one more thing in that, right? So these things will happen. You can actually arrange them with respect to LED layout. Even internal to the LED layout, you can create multiple layouts, and you can actually arrange them with respect to the feel you want. Right?
Yes. Got it.
Okay, so that is about the relative layout which you have, right? And the next one is basically in our app development, right? So layout part anyways, so during app development itself, you'll be just arranging part, right? If you drag automatically, why Eclipse is supporting LED layout is you can actually focus more on UI. So whenever you drag the controls, some controls with respect to other control, right? That's why if you just keep it as it is, the DPs, everything, even if you are using that same for your tab, let us say you have designed your app for phone. If you use it even in your tab where the resolution is more, right, the alignment will be same. You won't see any scattered controls over there. That's one of the advantages you have. So you don't have to worry more about layouts. I mean, I'm not saying that completely leave it, but yes, you have to understand how it is getting arranged with respect to other controls as such, right? But basically, if you drag and drop your controls, basically see even if I am doing mostly in my real time, right? Basically, I won't be using much of unlaid layout. I will be using, but my Android Eclipse will be helping me out to place the control exactly with respect to some other control. That's enough. You can actually focus more on the actual functionality of the app. And anyways, look and feel is something which is also important, right? That's how it is.
No, actually, so if you are working for an organization,